Officer didn't give a warning, so I told his kid he couldn't ride. For the last few years, I've worked preseason at an amusement park. I had the final call as a supervisor. Since I've got 6-year seniority, Evan thought I only work 8 days a year. 5 years ago, a police officer gave me a citation for driving 5 mph over the limit, even though I hadn't received a citation since 2001. 2 days ago, a ride operator called me because someone was upset that his child wasn't tall enough to ride. Although I could have allowed his child to ride, with adult supervision, I recognized the officer and denied his request. Yep, 5 millimeters under, officer. I'm sure he understood after that as child bald. Iata? Yes, why yes I am. Petty revenge on my own truant son. About 10 years ago, when my son, Jay, was 16, had decided he could just pick and choose when he went to school. He was a really good kid in general, and made decent grades. He just really hated school. I was a single mom with a career and had to leave for work before it was time for him to catch the bus, so usually I wouldn't even know when he skipped. When I finally figured out there was a problem, I tried everything you could imagine to make sure Jay went to school. We argued every AMN morning. I grounded him from everything he loved and I even started dropping him off before driving to work, putting Jay there long before school started. Unfortunately, he figured out he could just walk back home. It was a rough time in our relationship, as sometimes I wanted to wring his neck, but he was a foot taller than me and built like an ox winking face. In Texas, if a child doesn't attend school, the parents can be held responsible, up to and including jail time. Eventually, I got a notice from the city that further truancy would result in charges. I was freaking out and showed it to Jay. He was completely dismissive of it and said lots of parents get these notices but nothing ever happens. So the problem continued. One of the women on my team at work was engaged to a local police officer we'll call Gigi would occasionally visit the office and have lunch with the team, so we were all friendly. The next time G visited, I asked him for a favor in exchange for a case of beer. He agreed to help. I waited for a day that I knew Jay was skipping school and called G from work. G then went to my house and banged on the door yelling, "Open up. Police." My son answered, at which point G gave him a fake warrant for my arrest for failing to make G go to school. My son told him I was not home, so G told him to pass me a message. He would be back to arrest me in the next few days. G then left and called me at work to tell me it was done. Now this next part, I actually feel bad about. My son absolutely fell apart. He called me crying, barely able to speak, squeaking out that the police had come to the house to arrest me. He apologized over and over. When I got home, he was a shaky mess and white as a ghost. He couldn't even eat dinner. It was my original intention to tell him when I got home that I had set him up, but after seeing how upset he was, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I thought maybe I had gone too far. I just told him not to worry, that I'd call the city and take care of it the next day. I assured him everything would be okay. The next morning, Jay was up and dressed early and there was zero argument about him going to school. And it went that way all the way through to his graduation. I finally confessed to my son just last year that he had staged the whole thing. Luckily, he's grown up enough to realize it was done with his best interests in mind, but he was still pretty pissed. In the end, that case of beer was one of the best investments I ever made. Charge me to close out the account? I had an investment account at my bank that I set up in order to save for my kids' college and US edit to pay tuition. About 2 years after the Listone graduated, I realized that I'd been getting a monthly statement for the account, even though IT only had $280 in it, so I went to the bank to close it out and have the $280 transferred to my checking account. They sent me to an investment specialist in a small office off to the side, since customer service people can't do anything with investment accounts. I want to state that the person I sat down with was doing his job, and he had rules and procedures to follow. He started out nice and friendly. When he asked why I wanted to close the account, I explained to him that I was getting monthly statements, it was costing the bank money, etc. However, he told me there would be a $135 fee to close out the account. I asked if it could be waived since it was half the value of the account. It was costing the bank to send the statements. Onda got irritated with me for even suggesting such a thing. Then he spent the next 15 minutes trying to sell me life insurance, asking how much I had in my other accounts, and that he could probably do better performance-wise if I transferred it all to his investment branch. Cue petty revenge. I decided not to close out the account, but to take out $279 instead, leaving $1 in it. In a now condescending tone, he lectured me that it wouldn't stop the monthly statements, the reason I wanted to close the account. I explained to him that it wasn't worth $135 to me to stop the mail. 2 years later, I'm still getting monthly statements for the account that now has 13 cents in it. I got tired of my ex lying about me and ignoring our son, so I decided to prove who he really is. My husband Jay, 48, abused me, 53, physically and mentally for years. He threatened me when I said I was leaving him and terrorized me mercilessly. When he had finally beaten my self-esteem down to nothing, he started talking to other women online, so I kicked him out. In his online excursions, he met Kay, 37, who lives about 12 hours away. Fine. Great. Divorce me. But no. And not only that, after I kicked him out, had decided I would not be able to use the car I had found, financed and paid for, not even to take Ourson, 15, to therapy. He needed it to drive to Georgia from Arkansas to see his soulmate. In the interim, he had lied to me, cheated on her with me, and told everyone he knows that I'm crazy. The thing he didn't know was that I had taken pics. Every time he beat me and saved them, along with all threatening texts and messages, and put them in cloud storage. All I want is a divorce, which I can't afford, and to be able to use my car, but he would rather just blame everything on me and continue on with his life while not contributing anything, even a phone call, to our son. And refuse me the car because his Georgia peach is the most precious thing in the world to him. For now, so I printed out every picture, every text, every message, and packaged them for select people so the truth would be known. For Kay, I'm going to rent a car and take a road trip. I want to see her face when she sees what a lying posse he is. And some of those pics are pretty brutal. All I wanted was fairness, honesty, and to actually share my car occasionally. Kay has one, but since Myson and I are dead to him, it was just ignored. So I decided to fix things myself. Petty and vindictive? You bet your SS it is. But if I might get my divorce, my car, and my name out of his lying mouth, it will have all been worth it. Edit. I don't really have an update, except I've canceled the road trip, but I'm overwhelmed at the number of serious, helpful responses I've gotten. I'm very grateful. I'm also saddened by the number of people who have been in similar situations. I'm going to address some of the more repeated comments. The car is in both of our names. I have spoken to the police, one of which is my neighbor. They can do nothing. I don't want to keep the car from him, I just want to be able to use it occasionally. But since he's being selfish and unfair, he just takes it for granted that I would do the same thing headed. Why do I want to tell the current victim? His first wife drank herself to death. There were a few times when I almost didn't make it myself. I've been in contact with her daughters from a previous marriage and her sister, and while some details vary, our lives with him were very similar. I paid for his divorce from his crazy wife, and I carry guilt for the part one played, because I know now that she suffered just like I did. It hurts my heart to think that anyone else would have to suffer that pain when I could conceivably help them avoid it. But I should probably just accept that I can't save everyone, especially if they don't want to be saved. No, he is not a threat to me anymore. I don't exist to him, or if I do, I don't matter. I know the word narcissist gets thrown around a lot these days, but unless you've been in a relationship with a person that has NPD, you can't understand the bizarro world your life becomes. You question everything. You doubt your memories. The person I fell in love with 35 years ago doesn't exist. He never has. Everything about him that I loved was an exact imitation of me. That's why I loved him so much. We were so alike it was uncanny. He got me in ways no one else ever could. And then, when he changed, I just wanted to reel him back. But that person was never real. He's someone else now. I've seen who he has become, and it scares me for his new love. He is a reflection of her now, and what he's shown me shows that she's weaker than I ever was. Believe it or not, I don't want to hurt her. No one deserves to go through what I did, what his first wife did. I know I should live by the words his first ex told her sister. He's not my problem anymore. He's her monster now. Maybe I'll let her figure it out for herself, but it's hard knowing how badly she will suffer. I feel bad for her. I remember how precious and special he made me feel in the beginning. I know how meaningful all the promises felt when the one person on the planet who would love me forever and never hurt me made them. I also know how obvious the lies became when I realized that person wasn't real and never had been. I remember how stupid and naive I felt, unloved and unlovable. There's no pain quite like it. Until I learned about the aftermath of loving a person with NPD, I believed I was crazy. But everything I've felt, all the self-doubt, it's all textbook. If you know, you know. Some days I think I want him back more than anything, but I know, logically, that I don't. Gaslighting is real, and it infects your brain. It's a battle every single day. But I'm remembering who I used to be and regaining my strong sense of self-awareness a bit at a time. It's hard putting the pieces of me back together. but I can think clearly and objectively now. I don't want anyone to hurt or be angry. It's just sometimes hard to remember that the person I believe thought like me, hated unfairness like Ito, was just a figment of my imagination perpetrated by a natural-born actor who believes the only right outcome is the one where he wins. There is no gray area with him. If you don't win, you lose. I actually feel sorry for him. He didn't ask to be as mentally disordered as he is, and it's tragic. He has no future. He will never be truly happy. He can't punish the people who really hurt him, his parents, and feels the need to punish those who horribly love him and who he thinks will never reject him instead. So he is doomed to failure. It really just makes me sad. But, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Thank you all for the concern and well wishes. I will post an update when one becomes available.